Hi, I'm going to be analyzing How to Apologize by David LaRochelle. This is a great book to teach students how to apologize and the proper way to do it without making excuses and how to be sincere. So without further ado, let's get into it. The story commences with these words: everyone makes mistakes. And then before I say anything else, I have my students describe what do they see in the picture. They end up explaining, yes, there's a penguin that is using a parachute that falls directly through the roof of the alligator's place. And also they mentioned that the alligator is naked. Yeah. But nonetheless, something needs to happen here. And I told them, what should happen? The others respond, there needs to be an apology. I always add up with this notion. Did the penguin do this on purpose? From the picture, no, right? But nonetheless, an apology is still warranted, okay? Everyone makes mistakes, whether you are big, just like the size of this elephant, and notice how the elephant is actually using a phone and eating while driving. Not the best thing, and it causes him to crash the car of the mouse, right? So again, did the elephant meant to do this on purpose? No, and I ask my students that consistently so they realize that, sometimes mistakes happen, but nonetheless, you still have to do what? Apologize. Whether you're big or small, and when you've made a mistake that has hurt someone or something, the right thing to do is to apologize. My students automatically knows that there is the Scream and there is the American Gothic and the Mona Lisa here. And there is this adorable little cat that is pointing at this broken vase. I asked them, did the cat mean to do this on purpose? Based on the expression of the cat, this is not something that was done on purpose. Nonetheless, the cat has to apologize. And notice in the words, it says, if you have hurt someone or something, people's feelings hurt, and we can also damage things that belong to other people, and apologies still have to happen in those moments as well. For younger students, I let them know that when you're in a museum, you typically don't touch anything. Now, there's the words do not touch labeled on all of the art here, and only if an artist is allowing you to touch it will they make mention of it. But nonetheless, the cat has actually broken a rule, and most often than not, we're less likely to make mistakes or hurt someone if we're kind of following the rules that are in play, because it's intended to keep things safe. It's intended to keep people safe as well. On the other page, it says apologizing can be hard, especially the other person is mad. So we got a bunch of Timons out here pinning the tail on the donkey on the butt of a rhinoceros, and the rhinoceros is not too happy, right? It can be pretty hard to apologize, especially when someone else is mad, but still, it needs to happen. It needs to happen because it is restorative work. Or if it's someone you don't like. Now, students kind of challenge this in nature. They will say that, okay, of course, cats and dogs don't necessarily dislike each other, but I have to point out that yes, this is a book that is making a joke of a lot of different things and nuances when it comes to animals and such. Like, for example, yes, the animals are all naked by definition, but still, that is considered the norm in the book. I would have my students explain, what's happening in this picture. There's a cat who's flown a kite in and has landed on the steak of the dog, who's also not too happy, just like the rhino. Next page says, but it's important to apologize anyway, even if that person owes you an apology too. I told them, there might be moments where you have hurt someone's feelings and they have hurt your feelings as well. Both of you need to apologize. And in this case, it doesn't matter which one does it first, but it is a necessity that both of you are apologizing. I will read the posters on this picture. It says, fly smells like garbage, vote for B for class president. For my younger students, I'm telling them, is that a kind thing to do? They always report, no, it is not. Then I'll read the fly one. It says, B stands for brainless, vote for fly, he's your guy. And then again, I'll say, is that a kind thing to do? And they'll say, no, right? They both have hurt each other's feelings and they both need an apology for one another. The next page says this, your apology can be simple. Tell the other person you're sorry for what you did. Before I even read what the giraffe says, we take a pause. I look at one student and I said, if I stepped on one of your shoes by accident, am I just going to say, I'm sorry? But no, you have to say, I'm sorry for what you did. I would have to say, I'm sorry for stepping on your feet. Why? Because that takes ownership of what you've done, and unless the other person that you're aware of what you did that hurt them. That is the first step to restorative work. Stay tuned because you'll find out why Mr. Jones doesn't even like apologies. The giraffe said, I'm sorry I borrowed your socks without permission. Sure, we understand that the worm doesn't really need socks, and they're laughing about it, that's so adorable. But nonetheless, the giraffe has taken the socks of the worm, and the worm deserves an apology from the giraffe. The next page is really awesome and breaks down how do we apologize in terms of the candor and conduct. For example, we don't make excuses and we must be sincere. So we'll start off with the fact of don't make excuses. It has this hippo here. So we see here that the hippo is riding on a skateboard, and this has caused this dog to fall, and a bucket of paint has fallen on its head and such. So see that the hippo makes an excuse about all these things. He had an itch on its knee, there's a bug that went down its throat, and then the hippo blames the dog for having its ladder there and says,
well, if you didn't have your ladder there, then maybe I wouldn't have fallen.
That is incorrect. The hippo is blaming the dog for its own mistake. That is incorrect. When you make a mistake, you have to show ownership of it 100%. You cannot make any excuses. If you don't, your apology is not really an apology by definition. So we move on to the next page. It says, I'm sorry I knocked you over. In that moment, the hippo was taking ownership of its actions and saying exactly why he is sorry. I'm sorry that I knocked you over. And I'm not going to say, oh, it's because of this reason and this reason and that reason. No, we have to recognize that there's pain here. The dog has had a pail of paint on its head. That is the pain. We recognize it. We take ownership of our actions. The next page is wonderfully hilarious and great teachable moments because it talks about how to be sincere in an apology. It starts off like this. There's this raccoon that is only apologizing because he wants to go out and play baseball and says, this is why I am sorry. The students recognize like, that's not right because you're only doing it because you want to do this thing. That is not restorative. You apologize because it's a good thing to do, not because it benefits you, but because you're trying to restore something back, the connection you have with that person. That's why we apologize. The next we have this hyena that says, I accidentally squirted you with this garden hose, and is making a joke out of the entire thing. It says, oh, you have to admit, it makes you look hilarious. There are some really unfortunate things with this one. Not only did the hyena purposely do this because accidentally is in quotes, but is also making a joke of it in the apology. That's not an apology by any means, because you apologize because you recognize you have done harm to a person and you need to restore something. That's why. My students also recognize that it doesn't look like the hyena even cares because he's making a joke out of a pain. The next is this chicken over here. That's very puffed up and being very egocentric and such. And what's very intriguing is that there are certain words that are capitalized that I will enunciate when I'm reading it to my students. And we see that there's this really small apology that says, I'm sorry I sat on your violin. Now here's the thing. The chicken did in fact apologize for what the chicken did, but was not sincere because it's focusing on her, but apologies focus on the other person and the pain that was caused. If anything, it should be less about us and more about them. In the last example, we have this porcupine that has popped the balloon of this bear, and it says this, I'm sorry I popped your balloon, I really am. For one, it already sounds like it's something that's very sincere. And I tell my students, look at how the porcupine looks. You could tell by its body language that it seems sincere, it cares, and feels hurt, honestly, because it has done something to the bear's balloon. That shows you are sincere. The next page says you can also apologize with a note, and has this sloth that is obviously upside down reading this note. Super funny. It's a snail that was running too fast. My students cackle at this stuff. It's like, how on earth could a snail do such a speed? I'm over here like, it was Turbo. Y'all know Turbo? Y'all see that movie? This is where I pause and I tell my students this story. About a year and a half ago, Mr. Jones got into a car crash, and my car was totaled and the lady's car was totaled, but it was totally my fault. So what I did was I wrote a note to the lady, and it said just this. I'm so sorry that I totaled your car. I hope that you are feeling better. I'm glad that we did not suffer any damage. I will make sure that I'm vigilant and diligent about how I drive in the future. So that note really helped. As we continue, it says, even if the mistake happened a long time ago, it's never too late to apologize. I also tell my students this story about how I said something that was really unkind to my friend, and I realized in a moment, yeah, that did not feel good. I need to apologize. Even though it was a long time ago, I still apologize for the things that I said and did. And that was a long time ago. Their eyes get wide because we have this adult that has made a mistake and has hurt somebody's feelings. This is my favorite part of the book, and I really get excited to share this with some of the older students from 3rd grade on, because we really get into the nature of what we can do in those moments other than just simply apologizing. One is restorative justice, My students instantly recall how the penguin came through the sky and fell through and broke the roof of the alligator. So what he's doing is restoring the roof, right? If possible, try to fix the mistake. There will be a lot of opportunities for you to fix the mistakes that you've caused, but sometimes you can't. The next page says, in that case, you could still say you're sorry, then take steps to avoid making the same mistake again. Before I even bought this book, I had this belief in my mind. I will take one student who's in front of me and I'll say, if I stepped on your toe, and then I said, I'm sorry for stepping on your toe, and I stepped on your toe again, and I said, I'm sorry for stepping on your toe, and I stepped on your toe again, and I said, I'm sorry for stepping on your toe, am I really sorry? The kids are like, well, no, right? Because when you apologize, you are making a promise that you're going to do something different in the future. Apologies mean nothing if there's not changed behavior. This next page is kind of humorous because they see how the bear created this flag by cutting, a crown looking thing out of the underpants of this other bear. And it says, it might be difficult, but apologizing will make you feel better. But more importantly, it will make the other person feel better. This is great because students can now apply the knowledge that they have learned with this question. I will tell them, we noticed that the bear's underpants have been ripped. What is something that the little bear can do to restore this? Kids will raise their hand and they say a few things, which is really great. The first strategy they say is repairing and taking that flag over there and putting it back on the pants. Some others will say, well, just patching it up with something else. Some students will go the extra mile and say, well, buy him another new pair of pants. Here's a question, what's something that you would do in this situation? Comment down below. And then in the picture we see that, yes, the bear has decided to patch the pants up. And that's the book. It's a short book, but it's a great way to teach students the process of apologizing, why we apologize, and how we do it. And also remembering that promise that when you apologize, you're making a promise to have changed behavior in the future. Sure, yes, we are all human and we make mistakes. We still have to own up to them and also find ways to mitigate some of those behaviors in the future, right? And also knowing that that's how we create a restorative community. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye.